Welcome to Valley Beth Shalom. Please find your seats. In some ways, it feels like October 7th, 2023 was yesterday. And in so many ways, it feels like it's been 10 years. We've all grown up since last year, 1 year ago today. This process has brought us closer together. And we have traveled together and prayed together and cried together. And I think tonight is going to capture all of that. And so we're going to begin by learning together with our teacher, and here is Rabbi Ed Feinstein.
Good evening. Please come in, find a seat. And thank you all for coming tonight. We went to Israel this summer to learn, to teach, to be with friends, to show support, to help. And we went expecting to see grief and hurt and pain, and you see it. From the moment you land and get off the airplane, there are pictures, large posters, the faces of the hostages. You enter Tel Aviv, the graffiti on walls is a picture of the hostages of Hirsch, Goldberg, Poland, with the word Habaita, let him come home, underneath. Our friends have children in the military. We sit with them in a cafe. I say to him, "Where's your son?" He looks down, he says, "I can't tell you, I don't know." He's in a commando unit. When they go on a mission, he turns off his cell phone. And I don't hear from him for several days. And I said to him, "What do you do during that time?" He says, "Well, I can tell you this, I don't sleep until he gets home." The whole country is tense. The whole country is grieving. The whole country is worried. And then at the same time, there's life. We see a poster on the boardwalk at Tel Aviv right in front of the Radisson Hotel that announces Israeli folk dancing Saturday night, 7 o'clock. And many of you know that Nina's religion after Judaism is Israeli folk dancing. And so she says, "We're going." And I say, "Of course." Me, I just watch. And we get to the Radisson, and there's 150, 200 people doing Israeli dance out in the open on the beach. It's the most glorious, beautiful thing as the sun is setting over the Mediterranean, and the music fills the air, and people are dancing with joy. And we're watching this. I'm watching, they're watching this. And an older lady comes and sits down next to me, and she watches with me. And at a certain point, she turned to me and said, "Lamrot hakol, ze eretz nifla." Despite it all, it's a wonderful country. And I look in her eyes, and I say, "Ken, eretz shel nisim, a place of miracles." And she takes my hand. You have to understand that about the Israeli character. You have to understand that this is a country that refuses to give in to the grief and the pain. At the same time, it holds grief and pain in one hand and joy and celebration in the other. The most extraordinary moment in the year in Israel is the moment right between Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut. Now, here in America, we have a Memorial Day, which is devoted to barbecues and appliance sales. But in Israel, Memorial Day is very, very, very serious. Every family has lost someone in a war, in a terrorist action. So every family goes to a cemetery. There are giant national commemoration events at all the major public spaces all day and all night. There's a chyron, a little bar across the bottom of the television with the names of those who have fallen in the wars and in the terrorist actions in defense of Israel and for the sake of Israel. And the whole country stops to remember. It is so serious. And yet, when the sun goes down, there's a siren, and the whole country rises from that grief and celebrates with abandonment and with joy. The bitter and the sweet. And Israelis have learned the capacity to hold them both. The best expression, of course, is a song you all know. A song written by Naomi Shemer in 1980, when the country was in turmoil again. And she wrote this song, "Every bee that brings the honey needs a sting to be complete, and we all must learn to taste the bitter and the sweet. For the sake of all these things, O Lord, let your mercy be complete. Bless the sting, bless the honey, bless the bitter, bless the sweet. Al kol eile, al kol eile, al hamatok," on the sweet and on the bitter. You hold on to both. And this comes from the very beginning of the country. The very, very beginning of this experiment. And it's encoded in a piece of poetry that has become part of the Israeli canon. You ask any Israeli, they'll recite it to you like that. It's called The Silver Platter, Magash HaKesef, written by the poet Natan Alterman. And the story is remarkable. November 29th, 1947, the United Nations votes to partition Palestine and to create a Jewish state. For the first time in 1,800 years, Jewish sovereignty will exist on this planet. And there's widespread celebration all over Israel, literally dancing in the streets when the vote was taken. But then, a few days later, 6 Israeli pioneers, 6 beautiful, beautiful young kids were murdered in the south of Israel by Arab terrorists who were trying to stop the installation of a water line to some of the kibbutzim that were being built there. And that report comes into the newspapers. And Alterman, the great poet laureate of Israel, he's the night editor at Davar newspaper. He gets that report, and the pictures, 2 of them in particular, of a beautiful young man and a beautiful young woman, and the contrast between the dancing just 3 weeks earlier and the death of these beautiful kids. And then 2 days later, Chaim Weizmann, soon to become the president of the country, giving a speech in Atlantic City, New Jersey, says to this crowd of American Zionists, "We have been given a state on a silver platter. We must make the most of this chance, or we shall lose our rendezvous with history." And that story comes across Alterman's desk as the night editor of Davar. And 2 days later, on Friday, he publishes a poem in his opinion column on the editorial page of Davar paper. And this is the poem. "And the land will grow still, crimson skies dimming, misting, slowly fading again over smoking frontiers, as the nation stands up, torn at heart but still breathing, to receive its first wonder in 2,000 years. As the moment draws near, it will rise, darkness facing, stand still in the moonlight in terror and joy, when across from it step out, toward it slowly pacing in plain sight of all, a young girl and a boy, dressed in battle gear, dirty shoes heavy with grime. On the path they will climb up, while their lips remain sealed, to change garb, to wipe brow. They have not found the time, still bone-weary from the days and the nights in the field. Red skies dimming, misting, full of endless fatigue, and all drained of emotion, yet the dew of their youth is still seen on their head. Thus like statues they stand, stiff and still, with no motion, and no sign that will show if they're living or dead. Then a nation in tears and amazed at this matter will ask, "Who are you?" And the two will then say with a soft voice, We are the silver platter on which the Jewish state was presented today. Then they fall back in darkness as the dazed nation looks on, and the rest can be found in the history books. Alterman, an immigrant from Poland, knew well what a remarkable gift and miracle Jewish sovereignty, the state of Israel, would be. And he says to his people, let us celebrate, let us dance, let us sing, let us pray, but never forget what a horrifying price this will cost us. How many of the children with beautiful faces and promising futures and strong, powerful spirits will be taken from us so that this miracle can come to be. Sing today and celebrate the state, but don't forget what the cost will be. For the bitter and for the sweet, Israel celebrates. For the bitter and the sweet, Israel prays.
We welcome to the Bema our President, Eric Kingsley.
Thank you, Rabbi. October 7th was such a horrific event, and it was impossible to get through this year without the help and support of this community. The feelings of helplessness as we watched the news from Israel or encampments propping up on college campuses was almost too much to bear. But then there were moments when we heard from survivors and other Israelis about their resilience. When we went to Nova as a community to bear witness, or when we went to UCLA to support our Jewish students. The feelings of seeing many in our community wearing dog tags to support the hostages also took away our sense of loneliness. The feeling of elation and celebration when hostages were released or rescued was shared by us all. Sadly, there were moments when we lost hostages where there were setbacks in the war. This past year was draining and depressing at times, but it was also inspirational and uplifting by seeing not just the Jewish community come together, but VBS as a leader in that effort. When I became president in July, I had numerous people reaching out in the broader community, asking VBS to lend its name to this protest or community event. Rabbi Leibovitz and the whole of leadership, both volunteer and professional, stretched to participate in as many events as we could, to host survivors and other speakers to bring constant awareness to the cause. Wearing the dog tag in public gave me the opportunity to have dialogue with people, non-Jews and Jews, who were not familiar with the challenges we faced. Next year will bring new and different challenges, but we will face them together as a Jewish community and especially as a VBS community. As our hearts are turned to the east this evening, we begin with two songs about Jerusalem. Cantor Rafi will first lead us in one that most of us know, the beloved Yerushalayim Shel Zachav. We will continue with a new song she's composed this year, Prayer for the Peace of Jerusalem, which hopefully many of you heard on Rosh Hashanah. Please join her as we all pray for the peace of Israel and Jerusalem.
הרים צלול כיין וריח אורני נישא ברוח הארבעים עם כל פעמונים ובתרדמת אילן ואבן שבויה בחלומה העיר אשר בדד יושבת ובליבה חומה ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. שלום, 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 שיר המעלות לדוד שמחתי ואומרים לי בית אדוני נלך שאלו שלום ירושלים ישמעו אוהבייך למען אחי ורעי אדברנה שלום בך שלום 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 עומדות היו רגלינו בשערייך ירושלים שאלו שלום ירושלים ישמעו אוהבייך למען אחי ורעי אדברנה שלום בך. Pray for the peace, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We pray for your peace. May those who love you, may those who defend you, only know peace.
One of the results, one of the byproducts of October 7th was the way in which it brought Jews together from different walks of life. It was during an executive committee meeting for the board of the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition that I was asked to adapt the El Maleh Rachamim liturgy for October 7th with a fellow board member whose name is Rabbi Asher Lepatin. Rabbi Lepatin and I worked to develop and adapt the already existing El Maleh liturgy for this moment, and it's great humility that the Federation of Jewish New York, Miami, Hadar Institute have all included this as part of their booklets for the commemoration of October 7th for their communities this evening. I'll first read it in English before Cantor Barron chants it for all of us. God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant fitting rest on the wings of the divine presence, in the heights of the holy, the pure, and the brave, who shines like the radiance of heaven, for the souls of the holy ones, residents of Israel, men, women, and children, who were killed, murdered, burned, and slaughtered by the vile terrorist murderers, and who sacrificed their lives in the consecration of God's name in the vicious attacks on the dwelling places in the state of Israel, Be'eri, Sderot, Kfar Aza, Nachal Oz, Re'im, Nirim, Magen, Sufa, Nir Yitzchak, Nir Oz, Kerem Shalom, Ofakim, Ein HaShlosha, Moshav Yechini, Nativ HaAsara, Holit, the Nova Festival. And for the souls of the soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces, the officers of the Israeli police, and the members of the security services who sacrificed their lives for the consecration of God's name and died heroic deaths in battles defending the people and the land of Israel. For this we pray for the ascent of their souls. May they rest in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, Master of compassion, shelter them in the shadow of your wings forever, and bind their souls in the bond of eternal life. The Lord is their heritage. May they rest in peace, and may they receive their reward at the end of days. And let us all say, Amen. Amen. Please rise for the chanting in Hebrew.
El Maleh Rachamim Shochen B'meromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei HaShechina B'malon kedoshim tehorim v'giborim kezohar harakiho meirim u'mazhirim lenishmat HaKadoshim Ezrachei Yisrael Anashim Nashim V'taf Sheneheregu Shenirtzechu Shenisrefo Shenitbecha Bidei Meratachei Hamechabelim B'nei Ha'alah U'mazeru nafsham Al Kiddush Hashem מטה הקפה האכזרית על יישובי מדינת ישראל. בארי שדרות כפר עזה נחל עוז רעים נירים מגן סופה דיר יצחק ניר עוז כרם שלום אופקים אין השלושה מושב יחידי נתיב העשרה הולית פסטיבל נובה ולנשמות חייל צבא הגנה לישראל שוטרי משטרת ישראל ואנשי כוחות הביטחון שמסרו נפשם על קדושת השם ונפלו מות גיבורים בקרבות על הגנתם בארץ בעבור שאינו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם לכן בעלי הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור מצרור החיים את נשמותיהם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבותם ויעמדו לגורלם לקץ הימים ונאמר אמן.
Please join me in the recitation of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alma divra chirutei ve'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala u'v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'miran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. You may be seated. On October 7th, I felt a pain that I had not felt my entire life. We collectively sensed that extraordinary pain of the massacre, and we felt violated in a way that the Jewish people had not felt violated in at least a couple of generations. Some of us had direct ties to a particular victim, while all of us had ties to a brother or sister, a cousin, a family member, a friend of a family member, one degree of separation. The trauma of October 7th unified the Jewish people. In Michal Biton's essay in Sapir, titled "That Pain You're Feeling is Peoplehood," she references the teaching of Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, whom we all respectfully call the Rav. According to Biton, the Rav asks a simple question about the Jewish people. Are we one or are we many? He references a question in the Talmud from Tractate Menachot about whether a man with two heads should be considered one entity or two. Should he wear one set of tefillin or two? Should he receive one share of his family inheritance or two? The Talmud replies that to find the answer, one should pour scathing hot water onto one of the heads. If the other head cries out in pain, they are in fact the same entity. And if the other head does not feel the pain, then they are two separate people who just happen to share a body. Through this framework, shared suffering determines unity. We saw that play out this year. The overwhelming pain pulled us all together, and from many, we became one. It's natural, but unfortunately temporary, to come together through pain. I see this all the time during Shiva. Death in particular and tragedy in general brings family together, and during the darkest of times, family shows up. But if the family is not close beforehand, often as the pain subsides, so does the closeness. People drift back into their pre-existing routine. The bonds forged through agony easily fray. But our bonds maintain a stronger foundation than pain alone. Our connections this year might have begun in a pool of pain, but grew through support, compassion, collective will, courage, moral clarity, and a sense of our people's shared destiny. We came together to travel on missions to Israel, to volunteer, to help support, and to bear witness. We fed soldiers on the front lines in December, and we barbecued for them to honor their burden of responsibility in June. On both trips, we met heroes, and we bore witness with victims. On both trips, we heard from Israeli thought leaders. On both trips, we forged lifelong friendships. Only weeks after the massacre of October 7th, I received a call from the Howards, Dr. Alan Howard and Scott Howard, asking if we'd want to bring former Ambassador Ido Aharoni to speak before the congregation. That began a long parade of congregants stepping forward to offer to help, to offer leadership, to help facilitate Israeli speakers, ranging from Kfar Aza survivor testimonials to author Gil Troy's Shabbat Scholar in Residence. In late November, we welcomed Amit Bravslavsky, brother of hostage Ram Bravslavsky, and then on Yom HaAtzmaut, through technology, we welcomed John and Rachel Goldberg-Polin to the sanctuary. We began singing Hatikva at every service to lend us strength, and we offered a prayer every Shabbat of Achenu, trying to lend the hostage families strength. We remembered the fallen soldiers and community, and we celebrated the rescued souls from captivity. We cried together at the Nova exhibit as 75 VBS members attended on its official grand opening to show our support as a community. We cried. We spent too much of this year crying. So as we commemorate the first yahrzeit of so many victims, and so many yahrzeits still lie ahead in the days and weeks to come, I want to stand before our large Jewish family here and remind us that after a year of togetherness, we cannot afford to disengage. This is why I saw the need to create a local October 7th memorial service for our community, for our extended family. In some way, a year of mourning has ended. In some way, I don't think the mourning has even begun. But in every way, we need to stay together. No matter how we count the time of this past year since the tragedy, there is more that binds us together than pain. If we only feel the bond during times of pain, then it won't last. It can't last. Our commitment to one another is greater, deeper, more profound than pain. Pain is only one shade of the colors of commitment that I've seen emerge throughout the year. And we desperately need this sense of commitment to one another to last. Walking out of Rosh Hashanah services just a few days ago, a congregant commented to me that it feels like we're living out the opening line to A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. To be a Jew is to internalize the impact of that idea. I am sure that Dickens did not write that line for the Jewish people. But I'm also sure that a year ago, Hamas thought it lit the match that would detonate the Jewish state. And it did light that match. And it didn't realize that the match also illuminated a path toward heightened Jewish consciousness that saved the Jewish state. The bonds of peoplehood have never felt more real, more palpable, and we cannot allow that feeling to fade. So I've asked a few of my lifelong friends to speak about their experiences tonight on our various VBS communal missions and activities, the lasting impact they felt for themselves and for this community, in hopes that maybe somebody here may be convinced to join us during our next group effort. It is my pleasure now to welcome to the Bima two VBS lay leaders who maintain deep abiding love for Israel and for VBS, and helped create and steer and lead the VBS Maccabee mission to Israel in December, Rich and Nurit Robin.
Erev Tov. Nurit and I woke up on October 7th in a hotel room in Chicago. We were visiting our daughter, Yonit. Our WhatsApp groups from family and friends were blowing up about the news in Israel. We turned on the TV and could not believe our eyes, but we also couldn't look away. This seemed much worse than other Gaza flare-ups. And then Rabbi Leibovitz called. It was a Saturday. I wasn't sure if I should take the call on Shabbat, but he was calling me, so I answered. Hi, Rich. What's happening in Israel is awful. They're going to need our help. If I can get a group to go on Monday, will you join me? I said, yes, of course. I got off the phone, looked at Nurit, and said the rabbi wants me to go to Israel with him. She looked at me like I was crazy. Well, it turns out we didn't go that Monday. Nurit and I, like many of you, reached out to friends and family, monitored the news, evolved with our emotions, and tried to help as best as we could from Los Angeles. Like so many here, we connected with manufacturers of military-grade bulletproof vests, tents, sleeping bags, and just tried to answer any call for help that we could. Around October 10th or 11th, I bought the two of us tickets to Israel for late November. I may not have told Nurit, but the confirmation went to her email anyway. So we knew we'd be going. We just hadn't made a plan of what to do when we got there. And then Nolan called again. He wanted to know if Nurit and I would lead a VBS volunteer mission with him to Israel in December over Hanukkah. Nurit and I led a trip once before. In 1993, we worked together on LA Old Pond, leading 150 teenagers from Los Angeles. Nurit had finished her junior year abroad, and I had just finished my Army service as a lone soldier. We fell in love playing sheshbesh, backgammon, that summer. So having the experience of leading 150 kids around Israel, Nurit and I felt we were well equipped to take this on.
Of course, when the rabbi calls, you say yes. But privately, I looked at Rich and asked, who will agree to come on this trip? It may just be me, you, and Nolan. But really, it should have been no surprise that 30 beautiful members of our community signed up almost immediately. Some of the attendees were people we had known for a long time, and some were people we had never met. It was a group of people who stepped forward selflessly, who love Israel and wanted to be there to help in any way possible. At that point, no synagogues and few organizations had announced any kind of volunteer mission. So we worked with J.J. Jonah in Israel and Ilana Zimmerman here at VBS on a meaningful itinerary. We volunteered in fields and greenhouses. We cooked for soldiers, did their laundry, and showed our love. One day we made 3,000 sandwiches and 900 servings of shakshuka for soldiers on the Gaza border. We volunteered at Leket sorting apples, and we visited the pop-up offices of Achim LaNeshek, Brothers and Sisters in Arms, where the Israeli civil society was fully deployed to serve the needs of displaced families, hostage families, and children with parents serving in Miluim. We met hostage families at Kikara Hatufim, Hostage Square, and we cried with them and told them that they were not alone. We met people at Danny's farm working with soldiers and civilians suffering from combat PTSD and psychological trauma never seen before in Israel. And we bore witness to the most horrific crimes against the Jewish people since the Shoah.
We experienced red alerts when we were at Kibbutz Nir Yitzchak and when we were at the Inbal Hotel in Jerusalem. In those moments, we were scared, but at the same time, we felt the strength of Jewish unity and hope. And also, for a brief moment, we experienced what Israelis have been dealing with almost every day. We ate Shabbat dinner with displaced families and lone soldiers, including David Berger and Ben Harden from our community. They are both serving in Miluim right now, and we pray for their safety every day. And as a group, we walked to services on Shabbat morning at Shira Chadashah, the shul where the Goldberg Poland's community prays. And in the evenings, we learned with leading Israeli intellectuals such as Maddie Friedman and Gil Troy, and tried to grasp the larger political and social picture.
We had no idea how good the trip would be for our souls, for our sense of unity and community, and for friendship. We would encourage anyone to join a VBS mission or to make it to Israel sometime in the coming year if you are able. The group that joined this trip were a bunch of Maccabees, and this unique, beautiful group of people has carried us for the past 10 months. We are so grateful for our VBS community, and thank you, Rabbi Leibovitz, for making that call.
It's my pleasure to now welcome to the Biba two VBS lay leaders who maintain a long practice of advocating for Israel and advocating for VBS. They joined us on our VBS mission to Israel in June, Daniel Zakowski and Dr. Andrew Leitner.
Hi, everyone. So, Andy, Daniel is my brother-in-law. I was reflecting back as to why it was so important to go to Israel this summer. And I was thinking beyond just the opportunity to be in the presence of Jewish celebrity. By that I mean Jerry and Linda Leibovitz. The things that I carry to this day was, of course, bearing witness to the Jewish suffering. But I realized it was more than that. It was bearing witness to Jewish resilience. Through the relationships you've forged over years, Rabbi Leibovitz, this community has forged with individuals and organizations in Israel, we got to see the best of the Jewish people, the best of Israel. And I came home heart heavy, but also really fulfilled by being part of Klal Yisrael and part of that Jewish resilience. A quick story, we were planting green onions in Otef Aza in greenhouses, the owner of which, a man in his 60s, had to, with his brother, repair the greenhouses that were largely destroyed by rockets on October 7th. And he did that without the aid of his sons, who had been called up to the reserves to fight after October 7th. And then weeks later, hundreds of Israelis, strangers to them, came to help further repairs and pick the crops. With that kind of Jewish resilience, we came home with relationships that will endure and a sense of hope for the future.
We also learned a new good Hebrew vocabulary word, chiyuni, which is feeling useful. And it stuck with me because it was really the opposite of how I felt so often in LA relating to the overall Jewish community, which was a feeling of helplessness. It was incredibly meaningful to be able to feel useful, helping Israelis in even a small way when they need it most. We got to see the impact of our community, that our community has, and how VBS is really making a difference in people's lives. We visited the Michael Levine's base, a center that supports lone soldiers. We got to help bring supplies to those soldiers, kids really, the ones who are putting their lives on the line. And it felt like the least we could do, but it still felt so fulfilling and meaningful. We also visited Brothers in Life, a center that helps rehabilitate injured soldiers, and saw amazing work supporting soldiers who really sacrifice everything to keep our people safe. Andy and I were both struck by how the amazing IDF soldiers really represented every type of Jew from all around the world. Being part of supporting our international Jewish family with VBS was life-changing. And so was seeing that when our Jewish people is united and stands together, we are resilient and powerful. We hope that you can join next time to see the same. Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to welcome to the Bima one of three families who traveled with me on both VBS missions to Israel, and they attended the Nova exhibit with their kids and helps create a multi-generational atmosphere at the exhibit in August. Jill and Nat Linhart and Sarah, Jan, and Max.
Hi. We're Jill and Nat. This is my daughter, Sarah, and our son-in-law, Jan, and our son, Max. I grew up here at VBS, as did all of our children. We're here commemorating October 7th, which feels like October 372nd. Nat and I participated in both VBS missions to Israel. In December, we traveled as Maccabees in solidarity with our Israeli friends and family. The trip felt like an outing for a cheerleading squad. We love you. We are here for you. B'yachad nenatzeach. In June, however, the tone was dramatically different. It felt more like a Shiva call. The hope we felt early on has sadly diminished over the months as we've become worn down from this war.
The day we visited the site of the Nova massacre was, I'm sure as you can imagine, emotionally overwhelming. It started with a brief visit to the bus stop shelter where Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, was kidnapped and more than a dozen young people were murdered. We then stopped at kibbutz near Oz, where a quarter of the residents were either murdered or kidnapped, and the smell of death was still in the cafeteria. We then arrived at the site of the Nova massacre in Re'im. If you've ever been unfortunate enough to be at a site where even one person has been killed, it's overwhelming. To be at a place where 364 people have been slaughtered is beyond comprehension. Add to that the 364 pictures posted across an acre of dusty expanse, essentially creating a massive cemetery, mostly of millennials. All who visit are speechless. We heard one survivor's story, and she will never be the same. And the fact that there are about another 3,000 survivor stories out there, it's daunting.
Though I was unable to accompany the congregation on their trips to Israel, what my parents brought back with them will stay with me forever. While there, our parents sent us pictures, and as harrowing as those images were, I know they pale in comparison to seeing it in person. That difference shows that despite news coverage and social media, the reality of Israel's situation remains very foreign to your average American. Bearing witness to the atrocities drives home the gravity of the situation. That said, not everybody in our community, or those communities adjacent to ours, will make that trip to Israel. Not everybody will put in the foundational work they need to educate themselves and truly comprehend the plight of our people. That's why the Nova exhibition here in Los Angeles is so essential. It's crucial that the severity of what took place a year ago is understood by not only our community, but those surrounding it. As Rabbi Leibovitz mentioned during his Rosh Hashanah sermon, work and discussion among those within our community is as important as among those without. The Jewish people are drastically outnumbered, and 1 year ago, we learned that our allies aren't as serious as we thought they were. This war is not our first, as you all well know. Israel has had an eventful, tumultuous history in her short life, and it's our job as Los Angeles Jews to make sure that the communities surrounding ours are well educated. We must open ourselves to dialogue and new ideas, and to action. It's easy for my non-Jewish friends to express condolences or sympathy, but actually doing something concrete to help is another hurdle entirely. The Nova exhibition helps to open the eyes of those outside of our circle, though I wish it existed under better circumstances. I urge you all to reach out to your non-Jewish friends and invite them to educate themselves. It can only help. The exhibition is only open for another few weeks, but God willing, those few weeks are filled with crowds that consist of not just our Jewish friends and families, but our non-Jewish neighbors as well.
We were raised to be active members of our larger Jewish community. Our parents encouraged us to be loud and proud Jews. Especially after October 7th, our Zionist muscles are activated and ready to go to bat for Israel. But as we entered the Nova exhibit, we felt a sense of powerlessness. So much was happening to our people in Israel, and closer to home we saw daily protests against our people and indifference from our non-Jewish friends. After hearing a Nova survivor share her traumatic tale of escape from the clutches of evil on October 7th, we spoke to another survivor and asked, what can we do to help? She said, get the word out to your non-Jewish friends. We need people to see what happened here so that they know the full story. Just 2 days ago, Sarah and I brought a few friends to the exhibit and went back and to experience the horrors of October 7th and step into our daily reality for a moment. Their thoughts were really poignant. One commented that you could tell how beautiful the festival was supposed to be before it turned dark, and another said, as terrible as it was, it left her feeling immensely sad yet hopeful, because people who can organize such a beautiful event were destined to do it again.
We stand here in solidarity with this community, bolstered by the hope of a new year, the recent successes of the IDF, and the purpose we have in showing the truth to the world. Am Yisrael has never been more biachad, and we encourage everyone to spread the message to those who have been silent in the last year. Engage with them, have the difficult conversations. Together we will win, and together we will flourish.
And now I'd like to welcome Theodore Goldstein, who is a 25-year-old Jewish writer and educator. He publishes his poetry and essays on his Substack, The Zionist Voice. He was raised and became a bar mitzvah at Valley Beth Shalom, and he will recite his original poem entitled Psalm 13, The Daughters of Zion.
My heart is like the waters that rage without an end. It cries for Zion's daughters who've been taken once again. Like the prophet Jeremiah, we've seen this all before, but still it's no less shocking to watch the world ignore. The taking of our children, they raped them all to death, and the world of men was silent. They couldn't waste their breath, except to praise the violence and march all through the streets, while the voice of Zion cried out in sacred grief. How callous are these people? What happened to their hearts? How could they praise this evil? Is their blood made out of tar? Are their bones made out of wood? Are their nerves made out of straw? Their bodies march and move, but their souls have turned to rock. So let the waters rage. Let every heart give voice. Free our daughters from the cage. Let our souls once more rejoice. And let the mountains shake, so the earth may lose its poise. Every true heart in nature, give your soul unto the noise. Cry until the seas will flood the world in tears. Scream your holy pleas until we make them hear. Bring our children home. Bring them back right now. They're lost in hell alone, and we need to get them out. Enough of all this nonsense from the ones who scream cease fire. It's not their children trapped by the monsters they inspire. If every tree must fall, if every rock must crack, it would still be worth it all just to have our family back. So let the valleys tremble. Let every heart give voice. Bring home the sons of Zion. Let our souls once more rejoice. Thank you.
As we welcome our musicians back to the Bima, I'd like to take a moment to thank them and introduce you to who they are. We want to thank, of course, as always, our Associate Music Director, Daniel Reisman, on guitar. And we are blessed this evening to have with us 5 members and their director, of course, of the Los Angeles Jewish Symphony, conducted by their artistic director, Dr. Noreen Green. They are volunteering their time this evening out of their love for community and in honor of the commemoration of this event. So we thank you so much for your magnificent music, for volunteering your time. This year, Israel won 5th place in Eurovision with a song called Hurricane. But at first, Israel was about to be disqualified because its original entry was October Rain, and it was deemed to be too political by the judges. So some of the lyrics were changed around. Tonight, this evening, I'll share with you the original lyrics, October Rain, a testament to the spirit and resilience of the Israeli people and of Jewish people to create music to represent pain and healing. Writers of the history, stand with me. Look into my eyes and see. People go away but never say goodbye. Someone stole the moon tonight, took my light. Everything is black and white. Who's the fool who told you boys don't cry? Hours and hours and flowers. Life is no game for the cowards. While the time goes wild, every day I'm losing my mind, holding on in this mysterious ride, dancing in the storm. We got nothing to hide. Take me home and leave the world behind. You must promise me that never again. I'm still wet from this October rain. October rain. Living in a fantasy, ecstasy, everything is meant to be. We shall pass, but love will never die. Hours and hours and flowers. Life is no game for the cowards. While the time goes wild, every day I'm losing my mind, holding on in this mysterious ride, dancing in the storm. We got nothing to hide. Take me home and leave the world behind. You must promise me that never again. I'm still wet from this October rain. October rain. לא נשארה בי לנשום, אין מקום, אין אותי מיום ליום. כולם ילדים טובים, אחד אחד.
שורשיי בשני נופים שונים. My roots are on both sides of the sea. This song, sung by the popular Israeli singer Noah, speaks of what it feels like to have two homes. The words are taken from the Israeli poet Leah Goldberg's poem Oren, which describes the tension and yearning of having roots both in Israel and in the diaspora. Growing up in a house filled with Israeli music, I always felt such a strong connection to this song. This is because for me, while I was born here in Los Angeles, I always understood Israel to be my home as well. The primary reason was always simple. Israel is my home because I am a Jew, and Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people. Not that I need anything beyond that to understand Israel as my home. It certainly does help that a large majority of my family lives in Israel. What I refer to as my immediate Israeli family consists of approximately 100 people, which includes my aunts and uncles, first cousins, and their children. This does not even include second and third cousins and beyond, several of whom we are close to as well. This means that when it comes to sharing about my Israeli family's experience of October 7th, there are more than 100 stories to tell. And this is why, for the past year, my heart has been living outside of my chest. My cousins, Yosef, Hanan, and Gili, go in and out of reserve duty to some of the most dangerous places. My cousins, Shani, Talia, and Yakira and their families have been displaced from their homes in the north and the south. My cousin Hillel's girlfriend, Naama Boni, was killed while on guard duty on October 7th. And one distant relative, Don Wajdenbaum, was killed while fighting in Gaza. I want to focus on one story from my family, the story of Yakira and her family, who visited us here at VBS in August. Yakira is my dad's brother's daughter and is like a sister to me. Everyone always says that we look alike, which is the biggest compliment to me because it just so happens that she's absolutely gorgeous. Ever since we were kids, we stay up all night chatting during every visit. So I only share her story now with her permission. Yakira has been reluctant to share her story to large crowds herself, both because she grapples with the trauma she went through on October 7th and how others experienced, as she puts it, much worse trauma than what she experienced on that horrible day. On October 7th, 2023, an 8-month pregnant Yakira, her husband Gili, their 4-year-old son Uri, and their 2-year-old daughter Libi woke up to sirens at their home on Kibbutz Saad. Kibbutz Saad is across the street from Kfar Aza, in the Gaza envelope, extremely close to Gaza. As recently as May of 2022, I visited there with my sister Ronit and brother-in-law Matthew. It's a gorgeous kibbutz. We sat outside and enjoyed an incredible meal Gili cooked al ha'esh in their tabun oven. It was peaceful and serene, a lovely place to quietly raise their kids. And then October 7th, 2023 happened. On the morning of October 7th, Yakira, Gili, Uri, and Libi piled into their safe room, trying to make sense of what was going on around them. Gili wanted to go out and see how he could help, but he had left his gun with a friend at a neighboring kibbutz, and Yakira would not let him leave their safe room without his gun. Eventually, they all needed to go to the bathroom, and they knew it was not safe to leave their safe room, so they used a bucket from their safe room closet. They hid in their safe room from morning until night. They played silly games with their kids, for instance, pretending they were at the beach. The kids even put on their bathing suits, trying to distract each other from the terror of the day. Around 3 a.m., my very pregnant cousin Yakira, had it. She didn't want to go into early labor from the stress of hiding with her kids. And so, with her husband and 2 small children who had been stuck in their safe room for over 20 hours, they made the decision to leave their kibbutz and escape to the safety of her parents' home in Lapid, my home whenever I'm in Israel. So the 4 of them grabbed what they could and piled into their car, the kids still wearing their bathing suits. While their kibbutz is on Road 232, where so many horrors happened, they took back roads to get out of the area. It was still an extremely dangerous thing to do that night, as there were still terrorists all over the area and nightmarish horrors to behold all around them. Gili drove as fast as he's ever driven that night. There are 2 things that happened that are both miraculous and also complicated to understand as miracles. While so many of Yakira's neighboring kibbutzim were attacked on October 7th, her kibbutz was not infiltrated. This, we later learned, was because there were some brave Israelis that happened to come by and protect them from the terrorists. The other miraculous thing that happened was that nothing physically bad happened to them on their drive from Kibbutz Saad to Lapid. They made it safely to my Uncle Alan and Aunt Devorah's house that night. The reason it is complicated to understand these things as miracles is because, as Yakira has asked, why could these miracles happen to her and not to thousands of innocent others in her very situation? The survivor's guilt Yakira lives with is palpable when she agrees to talk about what she has been through. And yet the only word I have to describe that my beloved cousin Yakira and her whole family are physically whole is a miracle. 21 days after October 7th, their son Sinai was born. Sinai's middle name is Ilan, named for a friend of theirs who was killed on October 7th while saving others on Kibbutz Nahal Oz. Yakira's now family of 5 spent almost 1 full year displaced from their home on Kibbutz Saad, going from my aunt and uncle's house to Gili's parents' house to hotels, and finally even renting another place temporarily in central Israel. About a month ago, they finally returned to their home on Kibbutz Saad. This is one story of my family, and it is one story of your family too. Because as a Jewish people, we are all family. As terrifying as it was for them on October 7th, and as difficult a year as they have had being displaced from their home, their story is also one of hope. It's a story where, though since moving back they've been hearing constant booming from Gaza, still, they get to go home again. I pray and I pray that all of our collective family that is still displaced from the south and from the north get to go home again. And I pray that all 101 hostages, who are all of our family, who are still in Gaza, will get to go home again. I want to thank Yakira for allowing me to share her story. I applaud her and Gili and their children for the bravery and courage and resilience they have shown this year, and I pray that now that they are home, they can heal and recover and never have to show such bravery and courage and resilience ever again. I am sending them love, and I am sending all of our collective family in Israel love. Welcome to my family. I love to hear about your Israeli family as well. Am Yisrael Chai.
Please rise for Avinu Shebashamayim, prayer for Israel.
Shebashamayim, Tzur Yisrael.
Some years ago, I founded the Helfman Institute for New Jewish Music, which is a group of composers dedicated to creating new settings of Jewish music for the synagogue and the concert hall. It was initially funded by Dr. Richard Braun and the Jewish Music Commission here at VBS. After October 7th, we felt we have to do something. And I soon discovered that our brilliant teacher of Israeli poetry, Rachel Korazim, was curating new Israeli poetry written since and about October 7th. So we composers studied these poems, and then we had the privilege of studying directly with Rachel. And our composers have now set 9 of these poems to music, and we'll be presenting 3 of them now. I want to embrace all of you, because being here tonight takes a certain amount of courage. Our instinct is to look away or pretend. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe we're caught in some sort of dream state from which we'll awaken, and the horror will have been a dark passing cloud. But no, we're not permitted to look away. Our first piece of these 3 is entitled, It Happened. Poet Yoel Pinto awoke in Israel that terrible morning of October 7th, and like us, he was in a state of shock and disbelief and denial. Composer Bob Remstein's setting tiptoes the pre-dawn pacing as we all grapple with the awful reality. And in the middle of the night, it sneaks in, mischievous, smiling, asking, maybe it wasn't, maybe it didn't, maybe it didn't happen. The soles of our feet pace on the cold floor, whispering maybe, maybe it wasn't, maybe it didn't, maybe it didn't happen. Drops of coffee drip into the glass. Drops of coffee singing maybe, maybe it wasn't, maybe it couldn't, maybe it couldn't, didn't happen. The first light, and then the first sip, and then it was, it happened. Israel has done something wonderful. It has protected flowers. Did you know that? That there are flowers across Israel that may not be picked. It's amazing. They're there for everyone to share. And these specially designated flowers grow in abundance in the south. And Israelis flock there every spring in raptured admiration of these newly opened anemone, kalanit in Hebrew. Sitting in the heart of this part of Israel is Kibbutz Be'eri, where once flowers and families and youth blossomed. But this year, even as the flowers opened in the land, it was void of humanity. Adi Blackman Sofer's evocative poem commemorates the annual flower festival and is set by David Friedlander and myself.
Soon the winter will be here. Weeping clouds will water the earth to make red carpets grow. The kalanit will flower first, yet no one will admire its beauty. The buttercup will bloom next, and there will be no festival. The poppy will flower last in silence, seen by no one. יצמיחו מרבדים אדומים, עננים בוכים. יצמיחו מרבדים אדומים, עננים בוכים. ואף אחד לא יבוא, לא יבוא, ולא יתקיים festival. The protected flowers had all been picked in the fall.
As the rabbi said earlier, Chris Harden's son, Ben, you all know Chris, of course. Ben is serving in the IDF in Gaza right now. And Chris visited with Ben some months ago in Israel. So I brought this poem to him, A Coat of Many Colors, because I knew he would deeply understand what it feels like to greet a son just home from the front and what surprises he might have in store. In the poem by Racheli Moshkovitz, Jews rise in solidarity from near and far, reminding us of our ties to the land, to each other, and to the old, now new stories of Am Yisrael. my son returned from battle, his duffel bursting with things that I had not packed for him. Socks donated by the Jews of Argentina, a quilted blanket smelling like someone else's home, a blue towel from a family on the Moshav. Tzitzit from Yerushalayim, a fleece jacket gifted by a high-tech company, and a scarf knitted by an elderly lady. Undershirts purchased by online shoppers, a sheet that was given to him by a friend, gloves bought by teenage girls, a jacket from the closet of someone who came and requested to give. I spread out all the garments, and we together something new, a coat of many colors, a coat of many colors. You see, Joseph, your brothers were there. For you. Sorry.
One of my teachers has long passed from this world, somebody I read almost every week, moved to Israel around the turn of last century and at a very early age became the chief rabbi of Jaffa and later the chief rabbi of pre-state Israel. His name was Rav Kook. And he talked about Israel as our national sukkah, the sukkah that we were determined to build for thousands of years. And on every level, the metaphor works. The sukkah is the only time that my wife and I allow our kids to climb on ladders with hammers. The sukkah is a fragile structure that leaves all the gluttony of our home inside. The sukkah, it bears everything that we need, not necessarily everything that we want. The sukkah welcomes all of the people that are most important in our lives. Rav Kook never got to see the state of Israel born, but the state of Israel is that sukkah, built always by young people, rebuilt always by young people. And when we visit, we know that we're being welcomed into the national structure. And somehow each of us always has a seat waiting for us at the table. Now, I'm not sure how many of you know this, but Sukkot falls in a season called the fall or autumn. In Chicago, where we grew up, similar to Ukraine, like Rav Kook, there are 4 seasons. And there are many halachot, Jewish laws, written about what happens if a storm comes and knocks your sukkah down. Are you allowed to rebuild it? And a lot of that depends on whether or not the owner of the sukkah determines whether or not he or she is going to sit in it longer. Are we on the first day of Chol HaMoed or are we on the last? Is the holiday almost over? Is it worth it to rebuild? My friends, we're at the very beginning of our story. And we're going to call our young people out to rebuild it again. And it'll be a glorious, glorious sukkah, just like it's always, always been. But unfortunately, there are going to be pieces of the sukkah that will be damaged forever. There's a piece in the sukkah by the name of Hirsch Goldberg Poland that will never come back. And there are thousands of other names of pieces of our sukkah that will never come back. And they were part of the generation of young people that we were counting on, to rebuild that sukkah. And so part of the tragedy of this memorial, this commemoration, is that when we walk out of here, it's not over. It's not over yet because the hostages are not home. To leave here only chanting Mourner's Kaddish and El Melech Rachamim without offering prayers of strength to the hostage families would not honor the continuing horror, the unfolding tragedy that is going on in Israel. And so in a moment, we're going to sing Achenu. And for many, many months, I lent you Hirsch's story. And when we chanted Achenu, I always thought of Hirsch. And now Hirsch is free. He's no longer held in captivity. But left behind is Ram Bravslavsky, whose brother stood in Sherlapati and told us his story. Before our June mission to Israel, my family and I spent time in Herzliya, and all throughout Herzliya, on the door of almost every restaurant, is the picture of Omer Shem Tov, who is the Hirsch Goldberg Poland of Herzliya that you have not heard of. Nama Levi was stolen and filmed being forced into a Jeep with her arms bound behind her back. Omer Nutra is an Israeli-American grandson of Shoah survivors still held in captivity. And Shiri Bibas is still being held in captivity with her two sons, Ariel and Kfir. If you have other names, I want you to speak them aloud during Achenu. Because as a community, we should hear them. The names are published all throughout the internet, and if you don't know of a single name for which to stand and pray on Shabbos morning, I want you to go home and select one, choose one. And then devote yourself to sending emails to the White House, calling our elected officials. Because I stood in Jerusalem, like so many, and pleaded slicha. I'm sorry we failed you. We could all of us do a little more. Let's begin by familiarizing ourselves with the 101 pieces of our national sukkah, still strewn on the ground outside after the storm, not yet picked up, not yet placed back in its structure. Let's learn their names of the pieces that we still are missing. Please rise for Acheinu Achiotenu Kol Beit Yisrael. Evening with a moment of hope, Odlo Avda Tikvatenu, for we shall never lose hope. Join us in Hatikva. Thank you to all of the clergy who participated this evening. Thank you to the staff who participated, most notably Alana Zimmerman. And thank you, most of all, to Steve Perlman, our creative partner in the booth. Thank you for everything that you do for us. Thank you for joining us at this memorial this evening. We will see you on Friday night for Kol Nidre.